Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my July 2015 wrap-up. So, you may ask, Karen, it's September, why are we only just getting your July 2015 wrap-up? The last month and a half have just been really crazy for me. I've been really sick, and it's just been a real struggle finding time to film, to be honest, but while I did do 2 weekly wrap-ups at the beginning of June, I still wanted to take the time and film for you a quick wrap-up for July and just let you know all the things that I read and what I thought about them. So I had a fairly decent reading month in June. I read 11 novels and 1 novella, so let's just jump straight in and talk about what I read. The first 4 books that I read in July were covered by my 2 weekly wrap-ups in July, which I will leave linked down below, so I'm just going to literally tell you what the book was and what I rated it. First off, we had From a Distant Star by Karen McQuestion, which I gave 3.5 stars. We then had Still Waters by Emma Carlson Byrne, which I gave 2 to 2.5 stars. The Sweet Far Thing by Libba Bray, which I gave 4 stars. And Crow Hollow by Michael Wallace, which I gave 3 stars. So now let's talk about the books that I haven't spoken about already. The 5th book that I read in July was The Book of Blood and Shadow by Robin Wasserman. This book is about our main character Nora, and her best friend Chris has just been murdered and her boyfriend is suspected of having committed the crime, and this book just kind of follows that story. This book was definitely intriguing. I really enjoy the format of a book such as this one, where we are told at the beginning that an event has taken place and then we go back in time to before that event and kind of see the events through up until the event and then follow through afterwards to see what happened. I do appreciate when this is done kind of all in one hit, the events seen in the past, and we're not doing kind of time jumps back and forth between the different times. I don't mind that sometimes if it's done well, but sometimes that can be really disconcerting and can take you out of the story. So I did appreciate in this one that we just went back, saw everything leading up to the big event, and then just went on from there. I did feel like parts of the story maybe got a little bit long-winded, but I was still intrigued with the story, especially as we were getting to the portion of the story that I would normally suspect to be what the climax would be. We were only about halfway through the book, so I was definitely intrigued to see where we were going and what was going to happen. Part of the ending was a little bit confusing and left me just a bit like, what? But I did still definitely enjoy the story. I have heard this described in other reviews as the Da Vinci Code for young adults, and I actually think that's really kind of a good description. So if this sounds like something that you would enjoy, I definitely recommend picking it up. I gave this 3.5 stars. The next book I picked up was Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey. This is a kind of coming-of-age story set in Australia, written by an Australian author, so I really enjoy kind of reading books set in and written by Australian authors, as I am Australian myself, obviously, so I like to support local authors. And I really enjoyed this book. It is just a really beautiful coming-of-age story that was really well written. It felt really honest, and the portrayal of kind of teenage boys felt like it was done really well, and I just really enjoyed it. This book is set in the 60s in a kind of rural area of Australia, and it has some really interesting commentary on the Vietnam War and how Vietnamese people not living in Vietnam, living like in Australia or areas like that, I guess, how they were treated during a time of the Vietnam War. It had some really interesting commentary on that, which I really enjoyed. This book is just really beautiful, and I really think more people should read it. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The next book I picked up was The Witch Hunter by Virginia Boker. This is a book that I was approved for on NetGalley, so thank you to Orchid Books for approving me to read this one. I was really excited to get into this one. This is a young adult book about a girl who is a witch hunter, and she is one of the kind of king's best witch hunters until one day she is discovered with witches' herbs in her pocket, which is illegal. Substance witches are illegal, and so she is jailed. However, she then makes a deal with like the most powerful wizard kind of in the land to help get her out of prison if she will help him with something in return, and the story just kind of goes from there. I really enjoyed this book. I found the plot to be really interesting and engrossing. This book has some romance in it, but it's not heavy on the romance, which I really appreciated. And while there are kind of 2 love interests, it's not really a love triangle. It's kind of hard to explain, but I thought that it was handled really well. I really enjoyed all the side characters, and I also really enjoyed that this book, I felt, dealt with some like slightly more heavier topics, which you don't see a lot in this kind of genre. And I really appreciated that. I can't kind of get into what the heavier topics are, as I feel like it's a bit spoilery, but it does definitely deal with some heavier topics, which I thought was really great. And I also really appreciated that even though this is the first book in a series, it does not leave off on a cliffhanger ending, because it does get a little bit old sometimes when you're reading books in series and every single book ends on a cliffhanger. But I definitely really enjoyed this book. I definitely suggest picking it up, and I gave this book 4 stars. Next, I picked up Second Helpings by Megan McCafferty. This is the second book in the Jessica Darling series. I was a little bit worried going into this, as after I read the first book and I was reading reviews on Goodreads, a lot of people said that the series went seriously downhill after the first book, but I did not think that at all. I enjoyed this book just as much as I did the first book in the series. This series follows a teenage girl named Jessica Darling. It is just a contemporary, fun kind of series, watching her kind of deal with high school and getting through high school. It starts in her junior year of high school, and then each book, I think, basically spans almost a year kind of her life. We see her as a junior. This book was set as her as a senior, and I believe we then follow her into college, but I really enjoyed this installment. This book is just really funny. I find the main character really relatable, even though she is quite different from me, and I just really enjoy reading the books in this series, and I can't wait to get to the next one. I gave this one 4 stars. Now we come to the time of the month where I participated in hashtag TBR Takedown 2.0. This was my first ever readathon that I participated in, and I really enjoyed myself. The readathon was hosted by Shannon from Leading Lights. I'll leave her channel linked down below. I'm really disappointed I didn't get to film a wrap-up for the readathon, as I did want to do that, but as I said, I just got really sick and I just wasn't able to do it. But I did participate and I loved it, so I will now talk about those books that I read up until the end of the month, as that is when the readathon finished. The first book that I picked up for the readathon was Never Let You Go by Emma Carlson Byrne. I chose this book for the challenge of reading a book that is outside your comfort zone. I've previously in this month actually read a book by this author, Still Waters, which I only gave 2 stars. I was really worried going into this about whether or not I would enjoy it, so I definitely considered it to be outside of my comfort zone. This book follows a teenage girl who is kind of in an awkward place in her friendship with her best friend. They're kind of coming back from her betraying her best friend and trying to kind of find their feet. They go away to a farm for the summer to kind of work on this farm together, and then they both kind of fall for the same boy, and it kind of goes from there. Unfortunately, I was worried to be a bit nervous going into this, as I liked this even less than I liked Still Waters. I only gave this book 1.5 stars. I didn't relate to the main character at all. I thought she was a very weak character. There was an extreme amount of insta-love, not just like between one set of characters, but between a bunch of set of characters, which I really didn't like. The storyline kind of seemed really unoriginal and very predictable. Overall, I just kind of found this book a bit ridiculous. I did give it a 1/2 star because I had to give it a 1.5 star rating, because I did think the author did a really good job at kind of making the villain kind of really creepy and stuff. So I did give it 1.5 stars because of that, but I probably really wouldn't recommend picking this up unless it sounds like something you would really enjoy. The next book I picked up for the readathon was 4 to Score by Janet Ivanovich. This was for the challenge of reading an unread book sequel in a series. This is the 4th book in the Stephanie Plum series. I really enjoyed this installment in the series. I appreciate that even though this is like a chick lit series, the romance that's in it is actually being like quite kind of a slow burn, which I appreciate. I really do enjoy the romance in this series. I still find the series really amusing. I do worry because I am starting to find the books maybe a little bit like they follow the kind of the same formula and plot every time. So I'm worried that, as there are a lot of books in this series, I'm not sure how many, but I think it's in the 20s somethings books, that maybe that might get old really quickly, as I'm already starting to really notice it, and I am only 4 books in, but I will definitely continue with the series. And I gave this one 3.5 stars. The next book I picked up for the readathon was After Party by Anne Radish Stampler. I picked this one up for the challenge of reading the book that you have owned the longest. This is in a bunch of books that I kind of got all at the same time, and they are the oldest books that I own. Again, this is another book that I was a little bit nervous going into, as I had read another book by this author, I think in June, which I didn't hate, but I didn't love, and so I was a bit worried going into this, but I actually enjoyed this one a little bit more than I enjoyed that one. This book deals with a really kind of toxic friendship, and I thought the author wrote the toxic friendship really quite well. Even though the friendship was so just toxic, I could really relate to it, like, to a certain degree, and I just thought that was really well done. Although I did struggle a little bit as well, because the best friend in this she just doesn't really have any redeeming qualities. She's just basically a straight up asshole, and you're just kind of saying to yourself, why? Why are you still friends with this girl? Everything that she does is awful. She literally has no redeeming qualities, but at the same time, I've been friends with people who are quite frankly not very nice people, and I still maintain friendships with them for a lot longer than I should, so I can definitely relate to it. I did also struggle with the romance in this one a little bit, as at times I was kind of rooting for the characters and at other times I just didn't get it. But I definitely recommend picking this up and checking it out if you are into like darker contemporary reads, as I did definitely enjoy it. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Next in the readathon, I picked up The House of the Stone by Amy Ewing. This is the novella that comes between the first and second books in the Jewel series by Amy Ewing. This didn't cover any of the challenges in the readathon, but I wanted to pick it up, so I decided to just pick it up. And I did enjoy it. My main complaint about it is mainly just the length. I know that obviously as it is novella, it is by its definition supposed to be short, but I just felt with everything that they were kind of trying to cover and put into this novella that we could have done with a bit more content. Having said that, I did really enjoy the novella. I enjoy Raven as a character, and I enjoyed getting to see more from her perspective, and I gave this 3.5 stars. So that was it. That was everything I completed in the readathon. I did pick up another book, but I didn't end up finishing it in the readathon, so I will touch on that when I do my August wrap-up, which will be coming soon. I definitely enjoyed participating in this readathon. I found it really motivated me, and I really enjoyed doing it. I also participated in all of the photo challenges over on my Twitter every day, so that was a lot of fun, as I've never done that, and I was really proud of myself for participating in all of the 7 days of the readathon. So overall, in the readathon, I ended up reading 1,157 pages during that 7 days. So I was really proud of myself. I thought that was a pretty good number. I definitely recommend participating in readathons. I know some people find them stressful. So if that's the case, maybe you don't enjoy participating in them. I just found it really kind of motivated me. As you will see when I do get to my August wrap-up, following on from this readathon, I was just like a reading machine. I was in such a good headspace about my reading, and I was just powering through books like nobody's business. So I definitely will be participating in more readathons in the future. That's all I read in July. I would have to say my favorite book for July was probably Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey. I just really enjoyed that book. It was really beautifully written, and I definitely recommend picking it up. But that's all I read in July. Let me know what your guys' favorite book was that you read in July. I'd love to talk to you guys below in the comments. Please like, please comment, and please subscribe. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye, guys.